Welcome to the Success Solutions podcast, where we talk about fitness, nutrition, and business. In this episode, we'll be diving deep into the world of nutrition and explore how it impacts our overall health and well-being. I'll be your host, Eric Salinas, with guest Erik Grohmann from Grunt Grub Nutrition. So without further ado, here's the episode. What's up, man? We're over here with Erik Grohmann from Grunt Grub, and he's going to be talking to us today about a little bit of his experience with his business as a dietitian. So, Erik, how about you tell us a little bit about, who you are, about your business and things like that?
Yeah, sounds good. Well, thanks for having me on, man. It was good catching up prior to our official discussion here. It's been a while. So, as my other Eric had introduced me, my name's Eric, owner and operator of Grunt Grub Nutrition. And as mentioned, I am a registered dietitian. So a little bit about me, Marine Corps 0311, yacht with my my other brother here, Eric. So we got a little background in the Marine Corps together. When I got out of service, definitely decided I wanted to, advance myself. So using the GI Bill was a no-brainer. I actually started in school as a civil engineering major because science was always one of my strengths in school, and engineers make a ton of money. So I was like, that seems like a perfect career. But as I got into the program, I was about 2 years in, it was a terrible fit. I just had no passion for the field. And I kind of had that, come to Jesus moment, if you will. And I completely did a 180, and I decided to pursue something I was much more passionate about, which is health and fitness. So coming to that moment, I was really on the fence between exercise physiology and nutrition. But ultimately, I landed on nutrition because I feel that just from my background, food is a huge passion of mine, whether it's just cooking or going out and enjoying a good meal. Food is something that is super powerful in so many ways. So long story short, I pursued nutrition. I got my undergraduate degree from California State University, Long Beach. Go Dirtbags. And then the next part of a dietetic program is completing an internship, which is basically an accredited program. Virtually, it's a mini residency. So I completed that back home in Wisconsin at Mount Mary University. Did a lot of my rotations through the VA hospital. And I passed my exam 3 weeks after completing my internship, and I got my official registration. And now I'm about 2 months away from completing my master's degree. So I'll have a master's of science in nutrition. So yeah. And then where I'm at today. So I do work part-time at the VA hospital as a clinical inpatient dietitian, helping, a wide array of patients, anything from cancer patients to people dealing with heart failure, people dealing with renal failure, and being on dialysis, things of that nature, amputations, massive surgeries. So that's like a completely wild world of nutrition, because nutrition plays a critical role in healing, and I see a completely different side of things than my personal business, where I work with more a preventative mindset and typically younger people, right? And a lot of my business is focused on performance specifically. So people want to get to the next level of their athletic event of choice, whether it's running, whether it's strength training, whether it's CrossFit, you name it. But at the end of the day, it is people that have, an early mindset that says, hey, I want to be as healthy as possible. And I've identified nutrition to be one of the key tenets in making that possible. And then they find somebody like me to help them bring their nutrition to the next level, which is great. So right now I kind of get best of both worlds. I see the upstream effect with the young timers really taking their health seriously. And then I see the downstream effect of, in most cases, kind of what happens when you don't take care of yourself throughout your life. And then you get into your 60s, 70s, and 80s, and these health problems compound on one another. And it's a recipe for disaster. So it helps strengthen my drive to really get the point across to my younger clients of how important nutrition is. So Eric, sorry, that was a long-winded answer, but that's kind of who I am, where I've been, and where I'm at now.
No worries, man. Just on a side note, actually, I'm kind of curious. So like, can you kind of talk about like the stuff that you see from those patients that are, a little older that haven't been taking care of their nutrition, might be able to help people that, to understand a little bit better of like, preventative stuff like you're mentioning that you like to do with your business.
Absolutely. So I'll try to keep it as simple as possible. Maybe I'll just use a single example. So let's take somebody that's maybe a diabetic. So, in all other cases, other than type 1 diabetes, which most people are born with, right? It is an insufficiency of the pancreas to produce insulin. The most prevalent form in the United States is type 2 diabetes. It's basically a lifestyle disease, but it doesn't start, you don't just all of a sudden get type 2 diabetes. It starts with pre-diabetes. It starts with having blood sugars that are uncontrolled, right? And you can tell right away in the lab work with abnormal glucose levels, high hemoglobin A1Cs, things like that. So let's say that person, identified that, hey, my blood sugars are high, my A1C is high, I'm pre-diabetic, and they continue down the same road. They don't take care of themselves. Well, that then leads to type 2 diabetes. Okay, now you got type 2 diabetes. Well, type 2 diabetes, from the start can really be manageable. But again, if that person continues to not take care of themselves, it can lead to things like, toes becoming gangrenous because the body doesn't have the ability to heal wounds properly, right? Because too much glucose circulating through the vascular system impairs wound healing. So now they got to get a toe amputated. Well, that could potentially lead to a foot amputation, could potentially lead to a below knee amputation, could eventually lead to an above the knee amputation, right? But diabetes also wreaks, it completely wreaks havoc on your kidneys too. So a lot of people with kidney failure, it's a pure result of diabetes, right? Once your kidneys start, failing, now you're starting down a road to potentially being on dialysis, where you literally got to go into a facility, upwards of 3 times a week minimum, just to get your blood run through a machine and purify, and doing all the work your kidneys are supposed to be doing. And that takes several hours each session, not to mention you feel like crap afterwards. You probably feel like crap going into it. So that's just one thing, right? It starts with poor glucose control coming from poor lifestyle choices, whether it's, not eating the right foods, not exercising, and then you just continue to do those things and not take corrective action. And it can lead to ultimately living a terrible life with amputations and kidney failure, and then ultimately death, right? Mortality is the end of the road. And we're all going to die. That's no secret to anybody. But, to me, my goal personally is not to add years to my life, right? I mean, obviously by exercising and eating right, that's like a natural outcome, but that's not my goal. My ultimate goal in my personal life is adding, life to my years. I want to be able to do all the things I enjoy doing, whether it's hunting, going out west, hunting for elk, climbing mountaintops, snowboarding, and being able to ride all day, every day, running, right? Going hiking with my wife, things like that. I want to be able to do that into my 80s, into my 90s if I live that long, right? I want to take care of my body so that I can enjoy all these things for the long run, right? And not short term. I also don't want to work my life away, completely neglect my health, and then bank on miraculously being healthy when I'm 65 at retirement age, and then doing all the things I enjoy doing. Why not, stay healthy up until that point, do all the things you enjoy doing, and then continue to just do them. Like, to me, that is the logical progression that I pursue. But, everyone's different. So that's just my own philosophy.
100%, and you see all these people that, they get older and they're like frail, they can barely walk, things like that. And it's sad to see, because it's like, just go out for a walk and, start improving yourself. Even if you're older, you can still do it. You can still do something at a specific age. But, just people build these bad habits and they last them their whole life. And it's more about the limiting beliefs in their head. I feel like too, they think that the way that they've been their whole life, that's the way that life has to be, instead of, trying to do some research, especially with the internet nowadays. It's so easy to just look stuff up and be like, okay, at least to start, you can have like a little bit of information on where to start or who to see, like, oh, I'm having this issue. Who should I go see? Oh, I can go see a dietitian. You know what I mean? And then they book a meeting with you. So it's crazy to see that people don't like think that way. But yeah,
absolutely.
man.
I mean, you're 100%, right on the money with the limiting beliefs. I feel like so many people think certain health outcomes are just inevitable, whether their family member had it or that's just the culture they're a part of. So I live in Wisconsin, and so many men in Wisconsin just think that it's inevitable that they're going to have a beer gut and their knees are going to hurt and their lower back's going to hurt. And that's just what it's like to be 60, right? They don't know that like there's people in Japan that, started running marathons in their 90s. Now that's a single individual, right? But nonetheless, the culture over there is a lot different than the culture here, right? And it's just because they surround themselves with people that also feel like that's inevitable. They never break out of that mindset. But like you said, with the advent of technology and social media, it would behoove anybody to do your due diligence, see what possibilities are out there, and just not accept things as inevitable, right? Like you have the power. You have so much power to dictate your own future, especially when it comes to health.
100%. Yeah. And you're right too. Like just, the information out there, it even provides you visuals of, videos of seeing like older people. Like I see a bunch of people starting to lift weights, they're in their 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
And you're just like, wow. And they do like a year and then, they look like completely brand new before they're all frail and stuff. And then, next thing you know, a year later, they're like, killing it in the weight room better than some 20-year-olds. And you're just like,
for sure.
That's what, being, changing your habits and trying to live a healthy lifestyle can do, but it comes down to changing that mindset and those limiting beliefs that people get stuck with, unfortunately, for the rest of their life. So hopefully, with this podcast here and this episode, we can kind of switch that mindset for people and kind of give them a little bit of information. So let me ask you this. So how do the nutritional requirements differ for individuals with like high stress or sedentary jobs versus those who are more active, and physically demanding roles?
Sure. So we could compare maybe like, an accountant that works behind a desk for the majority of their day-to-day, maybe goes to the gym and works out, but their job, let's say at least 8 hours, is going to be desk work, opposed to maybe somebody like a carpenter that's going to be on their feet, climbing up beams, nailing, physical job all day. And the simple answer is that the biggest difference is going to come down to energy input, right? The person that sits behind a desk, depending what their physical life outside of their job is going to be, they're typically going to require less energy. Okay. Opposed to the guy that's working, physically all day, they're going to require a lot more energy because their body demands that much more energy. But the majority of the nutrition principles and basics applies to both the carpenter and the accountant, right? Making sure that they're getting adequately hydrated, hitting their fiber goal for the day, hitting those micronutrient bases, right? By getting a diverse diet. All that stays the same. The biggest differentiating factor is how much energy each of them is intaking, and is that reflective of how much their body is outputting? Because at the end of the day, that's what metabolism is. People think metabolism is something that you're just born with. And in a way, I guess it is. But the definition of metabolism is that it is the sum of anabolic and catabolic reactions in the body. That's all it is. So your body builds a lot of things, right? It builds muscle, for example. Well, to build muscle, your body just doesn't magically build muscle. It takes energy. It takes input, right? To build muscle. Well, your body breaks food down. That's a catabolic reaction. You're breaking food apart as part of digestion. Well, that breakdown takes energy. So all of the building and all of the breaking, okay, that sum, how much energy it takes, is how much your metabolism is going to be. So that's why when you hear things like metabolism slows when you get older. So that's true in a sense. If you were to look at the statistics, metabolism does slow as we get older. But the reason it slows down is because as we get older, people become less active. They are burning less calories just inherently. They also lose muscle mass, especially in men. So muscle is an anabolic tissue. anytime a muscle contracts, it requires energy to do so. So the more muscle tissue you have inherently means you're going to burn more energy. Whereas fat is not anabolically active. It just sits there. It's not burning. It's not breaking down. It's just sitting there, right? So the more fat you have, that's it. That's not adding to your metabolism. If anything, it's just slowing your body down for being more active.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So again, another long-winded explanation. So the end of the day, the accountant and the carpenter have the same baseline requirements, but the big one is just how much energy they're taking in.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's going to be really helpful for people to understand. And you explained it very great too, you know. And I wish more people actually understood about the point you made about, you know, the more basically muscle you have, right, versus fat, the easier it'll be for you to burn more calories throughout the day. You know, it blows my mind. Like I was telling you earlier with my brother, right? You know, he thought that doing more cardio and stuff would be helpful for him.
Right.
And I was trying to get him into more of the, you know, the lifting or lifting weights to build more muscle, which would in the end help him keep the weight off, you know what I mean, for a longer period of time. But, you know, it's just that education, you know, that people don't get that. And I wish we taught this in school, honestly, you know, at younger ages for us. You would think that something is like basic is like eating. We would be taught, you know, versus like calculus and algebra and stuff, you know what I mean? But
100%. I mean, obviously you're preaching to the choir and I'm biased, but I am a huge proponent of getting more education out to the masses. I definitely think, you know, the school system does us a disservice by not emphasizing that. And our culture, right? It's a huge cultural thing too. Our culture just does not prioritize health, which is crazy to me. It's like this paradox in America. If you were to describe, you know, what makes an American great, I think a lot of people would agree that our work ethic makes us great. We're just hardworking people, right? We work harder than most other citizens of other nations, right? We put in long hours, we're dedicated, we're driven. But then you'll say, okay, let's talk about nutrition. Here's what we need to do to get ourselves healthier. And an individual goes, that's too much work. And you're like, that's too much work. Like, you just told me that you work 80 hours a week. Like, you clearly know what hard work is. Like, this isn't hard work. Like, what you're doing is hard work. But like, the way we visualize hard work is just twisted in my mind. So we'll sacrifice our health to make $1, right? And we don't realize that in doing so, by sacrificing our health, we're going to be spending that money we make on, you know, medical expenses down the road. And at the end of the day, time is money, right? I mean, money is what we trade our time for. So if you're not able to enjoy your time by the time you retire, was it worth it? Right? Like, if you're 65, but you're broken and you're unhealthy and you can't go climb that mountain or do all the things you wanted to do, was it really worth making those millions of dollars? To me, the answer is no. Maybe to some people, the answer is yes. But I think most people would agree when you retire, the point of it is to enjoy your life at that point. So the time to start prioritizing your health is yesterday. It is right now. And it doesn't matter if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. There's always a time that you can start and turn things around, right? Obviously, it's going to be easier for the 20-year-old than the 60-year-old. But the 60-year-old can still do it, and they can make some big impacts on their long-term health and their overall life projection of what their capabilities will be.
Dude, I agree 100%. And, you know, one of those things, I think you're right on the money with, you know, the time was yesterday to start, you know, focusing on your health or anything, right, that's positive in your life. You know, one of the things I hate is people talking about, you know, their New Year's resolution. It's like, why can't your New Year's resolution be right now? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you thought about it, right? Obviously, it means something to you to think about it and you want to do it. Like, what is it? What's the difference between starting your New Year's resolution or starting on Monday or starting next week or next month or whatever versus starting right now and making that, you know, commitment to yourself to be a better you, essentially,
For sure.
and just live a better life, you know, a life that's, like you said, it's going to give you longevity. It's going to, and at the end of the day, it's going to allow you to enjoy your life and help others, you know, if that's something you like to do, which I'm assuming that most people like to help others, whether it's their family, friends, or whatever, but it'll give you that energy to be able to do so versus just being stuck, you know, tired, depressed, and all those, you know, negative things that come with just not taking care of yourself.
100%. I could not agree anymore.
So on that note, like, what would you say are some like practical tips for like busy professionals to maintain a balanced and healthy diet, you know, even if they're like consistently on the go?
Yeah. So, you know, the number one most important thing for any working professional, any person in general, is going to be getting a firm knowledge base, right? So when it comes to nutrition, like understanding the why you're about to do something, right? A lot of people go, well, if I diet, I'll lose weight, right? But they don't know why the diet is going to cause them to lose weight, right? There's a million different diets out there. Outcome might be the same. But when you start to understand the why behind nutrition, you can apply that knowledge to any circumstance. That's why it's so important, because whether you're the carpenter or the accountant, if you know the why, you're going to be able to make the right choices down the road. So let's take a working professional that works for a corporation that travels a lot. I believe that's the example you gave. Mm-hmm. So if you know the why, okay, then you can go, okay, I'm in an airport. Well, when I go to the convenient, let's say it's late at night, the only place open is like a small, like one of those convenience stands, right? That sells books and candies and headphones and all that. Well, you'll be able to look in the fridge and identify the foods that are going to benefit you, opposed to just feeling the primordial urge to eat. We all get the same hunger cues. Our body says, okay, you're hungry, but knowing, okay, what do I need to fuel myself with? What are my goals? What are my objectives? Okay. What is going to make me maybe feel satiated for the next 4 hours when I'm on the plane? What did I eat previously to this moment? Like, did I eat like a super highly concentrated, saturated fat source in the morning? Well, then maybe I should focus more on getting some fiber and some protein and maybe some more carbohydrates so that I can stay engaged and active while I work on my laptop throughout this plane ride, right? Once you understand the why, you'll be able to make those decisions. The next big tip is pretty straightforward. It's just pure discipline. Like, you need to, take it upon yourself to make the right, once you know the why, you need to have the discipline to make the right choices. Because you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you lack discipline, right? Like, you might know that exercising 5 days a week is going to be better for your health, but if you lack the discipline to go out and exercise, well, all the knowledge was worthless basically, right? Because you're not even using it. Yeah. So the combination of knowledge and discipline, that's the key. And then I'd say the next big thing is really understanding your environments, okay? Because every environment's going to change. Some environments are thrust upon you, right? Like, you might not dictate where you're about to travel to. You might not dictate what airport you're going to land in and what food is available to you. But if you can think about it ahead, like, let's get into the weeds. Let's say you're super dedicated, your discipline's on point, you know exactly what to do. This is something I do. Like, if I'm training for an event and my nutrition is super important, first thing I'll do is I'm going to plan ahead what snacks I'm going to bring on my travel in the event that I cannot find what I need. So I'm going to bring snacks that are, healthy forms of carbohydrate. I'm going to find things that have a lot of fiber, because typically when you're on the go, packaged food doesn't have a ton of fiber. So I'll make sure I bring my own sources of fiber, right? Things like nuts and seeds, high in healthy fat, high in fiber, both of which will keep me satiated, meaning I'm going to feel full longer. Okay. Quality source of calories, high in protein, high in healthy fat. So I'll bring that with me. I'll bring protein supplementation in case the protein sources at the airport are like $20 for X item and I don't want to spend that. Well, no big deal, because I planned ahead and I have it. But if I know I'm going to, let's say, like the Dallas Fort Worth airport, well, I know there's a great barbecue joint there. So maybe I'm going to eat super clean in the morning before that flight, and I'm going to chow down on some barbecue when I get there. I'm going to get some simple refined carbohydrates from the bread. I'm going to get some greasy fat, some protein from the meat, but I planned ahead for that meal. I didn't just like wing it and say like, oh, barbecue sounds good, I'm going to get it. Like, I strategically planned that meal. And then when you get to your hotel, call ahead. Do I have a mini fridge in my room? Do I have a microwave in my room? Like, what kind of meal preparation am I going to be able to do once I get to where I'm going? Is there a grocery store within walking distance to my hotel? You can take it as far as you want. The point is, planning ahead is the key to success, right? And that's after you have the knowledge and the discipline, the first two tenets I talked about. Once you have those, you create a plan, you are completely set up for success.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's a great idea too. Like I don't even really plan that much when I go out and go on trips and stuff, but it is definitely a good understanding, to have is to be able to know like what you can buy, what you can get like at a, if it's late night, specifically like at a gasoline station, something like that, if you are hungry for whatever reason,
right?
So yeah, those are like good information to understand about what you can actually just pick, because as you know, it's really easy to get like terrible food everywhere, and it's hard to get like good food in most places, and yeah, so that's
absolutely
really good. Yeah.
Well, one thing that drives me nuts is victim mentality in any circumstance, right? Like so many people are like, oh, like I can eat good because I was in an airport and that's all they had. I'm like, no, you just failed to plan properly. That like you're just using an excuse and playing the victim card. Like, don't be a victim to your environment. Like there's so much you can dictate that is, I mean, there are very few instances in America where like you can't properly plan ahead with your nutrition. And like that's just the cold hard truth, right? Like at the end of the day, it was a lack of planning or a lack of discipline, one of the two, maybe a combination of both. So
yeah, but that's kind of funny too, actually, just kind of bringing up a side note is like that's kind of like only in America. In other countries you wouldn't have that big of an issues because they ban all the bad foods. So
yeah, other countries definitely don't allow as much, right? Like if you're in an airport, they might have like a local, some local woman cooking some local cuisine right there in the airport. It's probably delicious and super healthy, right? Because all that food is probably plant-based and cheap. So
yeah, that's the one thing about freedom. You really get your freedom over here.
Absolutely. Some people enjoy it a little too much.
A lot more than just a little bit. Yeah. That's why obesity is a big issue right now in America. So
100%.
Hopefully we can help change that with a few of these videos, man. So I appreciate you coming on for sure. But yeah, let me ask you about like, so how can an employer, be created like a supportive work environment to help their employees, live a healthier lifestyle in the work environment?
For sure. So to segue from the last question, environment. If an employer can dictate their environment of the workspace, it is going to make it so much easier for the everyday employee to do the right thing. So some examples would be making sure you've got adequate refrigerator space. Let's say you've got like 3 huge refrigerators so that all of your employees can pack a lunch and know that they're going to have ample space to put all of their pre-prepared food in the refrigerator, right? Maybe you've got a freezer, microwaves, right? Taking out vending machines, right? And maybe offering something more clean, like one that offers fresh fruit and things like that. Because once you eliminate certain things, okay, like a vending machine, well, like the employee is just going to adapt. If they want to bring in soda and candy bars and chips, like they can bring it from home. You don't need to have that. There are other options that are more healthful, okay? And in doing so, you are creating a positive, healthy environment for your employee, and your employee will adapt to that. The next thing is incentivizing health. So unrelated to nutrition, one great incentive is like if an employer will pay for a gym membership, right? If the employer says, I've recognized health as being important, I value you as an employee and your well-being, we will pay for your gym membership to encourage people to go, okay? I think anybody would agree that the best way to feel valued at a company is getting something in return, right? Like I'm putting in 8 hours a day minimum for you. Like, what are you going to do for me other than a paycheck, right? So gym memberships, maybe encouraging a 30-minute walk every single day, being like, it's cool. Like you're not going to have to make up the work later. Like you squeeze in a 30-minute walk. Okay. Get some sunshine, get moving. Because at the end of the day, the employee that goes out and is active and is healthy is going to make up that 30 minutes time and time again in productivity because they're on the money. They're not feeling sluggish. They're in shape, right? Everything's going to be quicker. Their mental processes, their reaction times, just their mental clarity, their drive, their motivation, all things go up when all of your health, principles or all your ducks are in a row, if you will. So incentivizing the employees and creating a positive environment, those are two huge things that employers can do to really promote a positive health environment, especially with nutrition.
That's a great idea. And something that I was just popped in my head when you were mentioning that, it's like, I think it would be a good idea to have like competitions too, especially like you're mentioning like walking. People can have like step competitions, like who walks the most steps during the week, and maybe they can have some sort of incentives for the employees, or maybe for the month, and they can give them some sort of prize or whatever, maybe more money, or maybe whoever does it at the end of the year or quarter, they can supply them like a family vacation, or just them a vacation, depending on what their job is and where they work. But yeah, I think those type of incentives, it just keeps people motivated, and like you said, it keeps people producing more because they're healthier.
For sure. I mean, you're going to have better employee retention for sure, because one, the employee feels valued. Okay. It's like, hey, the employer that I'm working for actually gives a shit about me. Two, you're going to have healthier employees, which means you are going to pay less in healthcare costs at the end of the day. So it's two big, like those are two big incentives for the employer to incentivize their employees.
Definitely. Yeah. 100%. And maybe they can add a little bit of health insurance in there too.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, a quick side note for myself, a third option would be bringing somebody like myself in to consult, right? Hire me for an hour to give a lecture on a basic nutrition topic to all of your employees. They can come in. I can make it 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, whatever you want, but bring me in every once in a while and pitch and talk about the nutrition basics. If I can reach 500 people all at once, that's 500 people making a healthier choice potentially, and that will be seen down the road. And again, healthcare cost savings, employees feeling valued, employees being more productive at work. So that money that you're investing in somebody like me to come in will pay itself back without a doubt.
Now that you mentioned that, actually, this might be a good side note for you, for your business, is like, I wonder if there's a way that you can get into like, how people have those like onboarding trainings for their, employees.
Absolutely.
Like that might be a good idea. Honestly, you get in there, they're training you on how to do all the work for them. They might as well train you on how to,
eat right,
be healthy. Yeah. How to stay focused and be able to do your job better, by being healthy and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I mean, I know there's consulting companies that will like design kitchens and like eating spaces for corporations. There's some companies that are so on top of it, they've got a full-time dietitian on staff. So any employee can go seek nutrition counseling anytime they want. That dietitian essentially is on retainer, right? And that's like next level. Like that's going to cost the company a good amount of money, right? But like obviously they're dedicated. They see the value in that. That is something that exists. That's not some novel idea that no one has tried before. Like that is happening as we speak in several corporations around the United States.
Yeah, that's awesome, honestly. And I think that for any company that has any sort of sales involved and has like, salespeople working with them, I think that's great for their employees that are, in the sales game, because you need those salespeople to be on point all the time,
for sure,
those long hours, and be able to just, generate that revenue for the company, and just be, all around in a better mindset for themselves and for their customers in the long run, because that's what's gonna help the whole business thrive and grow.
Without a doubt. You want some sales savages.
Exactly. So let me ask you this then. So like, what role do like micronutrients play in cognitive function, and how can business professionals optimize their intake for enhanced productivity and focus?
Yeah, so micronutrients are super important, right? We're talking about all the vitamins, all of the minerals, all of the phytonutrients. The best answer, honestly, is just making sure you have a diverse diet, right? If you are eating a ton of different foods, that means nuts and seeds, fruits and vegetables, not just the same ones every day, and you're getting a wide variety, you are going to cover your micronutrient bases, right? Eating things like egg yolks, okay? It's got choline, lots of vitamins and minerals. Eating, the huge craze right now is like the liver king and eating these desecrated organs. And like liver's a great food. Like if you eat liver once a week, you're getting a ton of your vitamins and minerals just from the liver. But just by eating a diverse diet, almost everyone's going to cover their nutrient bases. Okay. So varying your protein sources, varying your plant sources, different fruits and vegetables, different nuts and seeds, different grains, right? Eating brown rice, farro, barley, whole grain, whole wheat, right? Things like that. And then the secondary thing to do would be like targeted supplementation. So if you feel like whether you have a food allergy or maybe it's just a preference and you don't like a major food category, like I just can't eat that. Well, then find out what, nutrient is prevalent in those foods you're avoiding and making sure that you're making up with it with a supplement. The thing about supplements is people don't realize they're called supplements for a reason. They're not replacements. They're not called, I'm going to go take some replacements. Like I'm going to go to the store and buy some supplements. They're meant to supplement the diet. Meaning if you fall short in a category, which should come first from food, you can then fall back on a supplement to make up the difference. So targeted supplementation would be the next best thing. So one nutrient that comes to mind is something called resveratrol, which is found in things like grapes. Okay. That is like a huge, like you can find resveratrol supplements, tons of them. But if you just eat a ton of, like let's say grapes and blueberries, things with those dark blue and purple plant pigments, you're going to get all that resveratrol. Now, one thing that most studies on supplements finds is that the supplement itself does not work as good as the food source. And the line of thinking is that the other nutrients that come packed in the food. So when you eat a grape, there's resveratrol in the pigments, but you're also getting other vitamins and minerals, not to mention carbohydrates and things of that nature with water and fiber, all in one package. And the line of thinking is there is a synergistic effect. So as that prepackaged food gets unpackaged by your body during digestion, the effects and the absorption of the resveratrol is going to be boosted in a synergistic effect because of the other nutrients as well, opposed to taking it just in isolation. So that's the same thing with like vitamin C. So like eating food sources of vitamin C is way more effective than taking like emergency or vitamin C pill, if that makes sense. There's a synergistic effect with food that's super important and often overlooked, which is why, again, it is best to get all your micronutrient bases and macronutrient bases from food first.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's important for people to understand that because, one of the first things like I hear a lot of people say when they start trying to get into fitness and stuff like, what supplements should I take? It's like, what do you mean what supplements should you take? How about worrying about what you should be eating?
100%.
That's where everything is really going to come from. That's where all your nutrients comes from. So it's just funny, they're so willing to like invest all this money into supplements and this and that. And I want to get big or I want to get small, and lean.
Absolutely.
Like, understand what you're putting in your body with the food that you're eating, that you've been eating your whole life first before you even worry about any sort of supplements,
Without a doubt.
It's just like an addition to what you may not have, prevalent around you or what you just may need to intake a little bit more of. But yeah, you should always be getting your nutrition or most of your nutrition through whole foods.
For sure. And when it comes to performance, supplements play a bigger role, right? Like if you want to take things to the next level in introducing things like protein supplementation, creatine, okay, things like that. Absolutely. I will say one final note on supplements. One supplement that I think pretty much everyone should be taking in modern day America, unless you live in a warm climate year round and work outside, is vitamin D. I think almost all Americans would benefit from taking vitamin D. There's virtually no risk in taking vitamin D and a huge potential for benefit because most people are deficient, especially anybody that works in an office. Even if you live in sunny California, if you work 8 hours a day in an office, likely you are not getting as much vitamin D as you could be getting. And vitamin D is extremely important in a number of processes that our body needs. So vitamin D would be a supplement that I think most people would benefit from just in general.
Yeah, that's a great point right there. I've been kind of understanding a little bit more about that and how important it is to just go out, just go outside and enjoy the sun, but get that vitamin D directly from the sun. It's amazing how like nature and everything around us, just, you know, we're made for it. And we kind of isolate ourselves just being indoors. And, you know, we've created this whole society of like, we're not in tune with our body. We're not in tune with nature. So
yeah, civilization in general is like the most unnatural thing we could possibly be doing.
For sure. Yeah. It's crazy that we, like I said before, we even have to be talking about, you know, what's so basic as eating. It's like, how do you eat properly? It's
right.
Like, you should understand that already, you know, but it's crazy. Man.
Absolutely.
But yeah, let me ask you this. So how do various dietary approaches such as like intermittent fasting, keto, or plant-based diets impact the overall health and performance of working professionals?
Sure. So when it comes to any diet, I classify myself as an anti-diet advocate. At the end of the day, it comes down to what is going to be realistic and what is going to be something that that individual can sustain for the rest of their life, right? If that individual benefits from intermittent fasting, let's say intermittent fasting is a good method for that individual to lose weight and they can maintain that for the rest of their life, then go ahead and intermittent fast all you want. The big thing with me and my clients is we come to a point of hashing out some hard truths. Like, what am I going to be able to really sustain in the long term? The keto diet is one of the more risky diets for a number of reasons. And we won't even dive into that because, you know, it's a lengthy explanation. There's a lot of science that goes behind it. But on a basic level, what makes the keto diet terrible is that it's probably one of the least sustainable diets of all time, right? Like, that is something that you need full control of your environment all times. Like, if you travel, if you go out with friends, if you go out to a family event, it is very hard to stick to a pure ketogenic diet. And a pure ketogenic diet is consuming like 80+% fat, right? A lot of people, like, you need to have like less than 10% total carbohydrates, which you can pretty much get from a single banana. And if you're not in true ketosis, what you're doing is you're just eating a really high fat diet. And if you're doing that, well, then your body's not converting all of it to ketones. It's going to start circulating through your circulatory system, and your chances of developing heart-related problems down the road are very high. Now, I'm sorry if that breaks any of you listeners' hearts out there, but that's just the cold, hard truth about it. Yes, I'll just stop myself there because I could go on about that diet and the carnivore diet. At the end of the day, the goal for anybody should be to build a sustainable pattern of eating, something that you can maintain for the rest of your life, right? We're in this for the long game. Food is something that you enjoy, in most cases, 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, maybe some snacks, every single day until the day you die. So if you can't maintain that dietary pattern through all of that, it's not going to be successful, right? That's why over 90% of diets fail. And people that lose weight on a diet just gain all the way back because in their minds, it's a limited thing. Oh, I'm going to go do that for a month before I go to the beach. I'm going to do that for 15 days before I go to this event. Like, beginning, end. No. That's not how we look at diet. If you just Google the word diet, it is something that it's a pattern of eating that is habitual. It's something that an animal or person habitually eats, meaning they do it repetitively over the course of their life. It's not a 15-day crash diet or a 2-month challenge. It's every day. So getting to a point of consistency, that is the key for anybody. And that might look different. There is no one dietary pattern that's better than others, right? There are some categories of diets like the Mediterranean diet that have been scientifically shown through ample data to be a healthy style of eating. But even within the Mediterranean diet, there's several different Mediterranean style diets, right? Morocco's in the Mediterranean, Italy's in the Mediterranean, Greece is in the Mediterranean. You could eat a fully Greek diet, fully Moroccan diet, fully Italian diet, maybe a combination of all of them, but the tenets are the same, right? And finding something like that is the overall goal. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I was going to mention something. I was thinking about one of the points you mentioned, but I'll think about it and I'll come back to it. So let's get to the next question. So what strategies can individuals use to avoid like negative health effects of prolonged sitting, such as incorporating movement, breaks, and healthier snack options?
Yeah, for sure. So snacks are big, right? Again, that comes down to education, knowing the why, having the discipline, and then proper execution of planning, like what snacks are you going to bring into the office for yourself. When it comes to prolonged periods of sitting, nutrition plays less of a role in combating the effects of that, right? I'd say more exercise-based strategies are going to be better there. So I'm going to give a quick shout out to somebody that I follow on Instagram. Her name is Doc Mraz. So if you looked her up, it would be Doc, DOC _ MRAZ. So she is a physical therapist, and she is huge on movement. And what I love about her posts on Instagram and the message she gets out is she always has clips of her working at a desk, and it's like a time lapse of the different positions she sits in throughout the day. So she's got a stand-up desk. So sometimes she's got it all the way up. Sometimes she's got it all the way down. Sometimes she's got it midway up. Sometimes she's sitting on the desk. Sometimes she's sitting in a chair. Sometimes her legs up on the desk. But she has all these different movement patterns throughout the day. So you're not just sitting in the same position day in and day out. Movement in general is key. The human body is built to move. It's not built to sit behind a desk all day. So any chance you get to move more, whether it's a stand-up desk, whether it's sitting on a big inflatable ball instead of a chair to get some back and forth movement, core stability, back stability, that's huge. One thing I will say is that sitting for such long periods of time as it relates to nutrition is that it can cause some GI troubles, right? Because for your GI system to work effectively, a lot of it's based on your body's movements, right? Like muscles contract and then your GI tract kind of contracts and goes with the flow and things move along nicely. But when you sit behind a desk, like it doesn't really get that movement it needs. So you can get backed up and cause a whole bunch of GI issues. And for that, I'd say the number one things to focus on from a basic standpoint would be making sure you hit your fiber goal every day and getting enough hydration, right? So just water and high fiber foods, that'll go a long way. Now, the office setting's a little different. Sometimes high fiber foods lead to gas. Obviously, you don't want to be just letting them rip, if you're in a cubicle next to a whole bunch of other people. But that's something you kind of got to experiment with yourself. Like, obviously, some people can handle broccoli and other people can't. Like, it's just that'll come down to an individual basis.
So, like for the fiber goal, like what should people be looking at or maybe testing out for how much should they be eating daily?
Sure. So the general rule of thumb is 14 grams of fiber per 1,000 calories. So on a 2,000 calorie diet, 28 grams of fiber a day. And that's a safe rule of thumb.
Okay. And what's like a good way they can get, fibers into their diet?
It's a great question. So what is fiber, right? That's the first question I always ask people. Like, do you even know what fiber is? So the easiest way to explain it in the form of analogy, it would be like, fiber is the skeleton of plants, okay? Like we have bones and plants have fiber, right? That's not the technical term for, their actual structure, but that's really what fiber is. Fiber is indigestible carbohydrates. So any plant foods you're eating are going to have fiber in them, okay? So like nuts and seeds, whole fruits and vegetables, things like that. That is your best sources of fiber. And you can degrade the fiber by cooking. So like if you over steam a vegetable, like let's say you take a carrot, the raw carrot is going to have more fiber than the super steamed carrot. You can actually break down basically anytime you take work away from the body. So like processing food, you're taking work away from the body. So let's say you take, what's a good example? An apple. So if you just take a bite out of an apple, okay, sure, there's fructose. It's a high sugar food technically, right? Because it's got fructose in it, high in carbohydrates. But all that fructose is locked in all of these cell structures, and your body has to work to strip that apart, right? So your body's working, meaning it's burning calories as it digests the apple. It's also getting slowly released in a controlled way because it's coming slowly. But now let's look at applesauce. We had a machine take the apple, turn it into applesauce. Well, that's work your body's not doing. So you're going to burn less calories just eating the applesauce. Second, it is going to absorb much quicker because, again, that work has now not been done by your body. It's been done by a machine, so you're going to absorb it quicker. And then one step further down the processing line would be something like apple juice. So now all of the fiber's been stripped. So essentially, you're just drinking sugar water. Now, of course, apple juice is better than soda because at least with the apple juice, you're still getting the vitamins and minerals from the apple itself, but you're not going to be getting the fiber bump, right? And the other beneficial nutrients such as that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And not to mention that you'll also probably end up eating or drinking much more of the apple juice or like you were saying, the the thing you mentioned before that, than you would be if you just ate an apple and you get full from eating the apple itself. But
For
with
sure.
the juice, you can just drink as much as you want. So yeah,
Absolutely.
adding more calories. So as a dietitian, do you guys believe in like calories and stuff like that, or what's your guys' thoughts behind that? Do you guys teach people about that, or are you guys more into? I know this is on a side note, but are you guys more into like showing people just like how to change their eating habits and make them better?
Yeah, well, I mean, at the end of the day, calorie is just a form of energy, right? So like calorie is literally a measure of energy. It's how oh man, going back to my my basic biochemistry. So I believe it is the amount of heat required to heat 1 gram, a certain amount of water by 1 degree Celsius. That is like the equivalent of 1 calorie. So it's just a unit of measure. But yeah, we absolutely use calories, right? Because it is the best way to gauge energy in, right? Versus an individual's energy out. Now, there's all these arguments, oh, calories don't matter because the form of the calorie. So for example, some foods, some macronutrients are more thermogenic than others. Like it takes your body more energy to metabolize protein than it does carbohydrates. You're going to be burning more if you eat high protein, right? But the difference is so negligible in the long term. It's such a small amount of difference that calories, are just a good baseline to start with. So yeah, we absolutely play in the calorie game. Otherwise, you've got really no baseline. Now, calorie counting, on the other hand, it can be extremely tedious for an individual, right? Like maybe people don't have the time to track everything they eat. Now, of course, if you have the time, it is an extremely beneficial tool. All these free nutrition trackers out there, I have all my clients use because it might highlight some red flags like, oh, I didn't realize I was eating so much for breakfast, or I didn't realize my nighttime snack was so high in calories, or so low in protein, but so high in fat. I didn't realize it was so out of whack, right? Just seeing that in the form of raw data is super beneficial. But once you get to a point, depending what your goals are, you can do what's called intuitive eating, right? Like you kind of just listen to your body. You already know, right? You can only really intuitively eat when you have that baseline knowledge of what you should be eating, right? Because you're going to be listening to your hunger cues and you go, okay, I know I'm about to run. Like I probably eat some high carbohydrate items, leading up to this run so I can, fuel that. I'm feeling a little hungry. Like me, like at this point, well, I'm training for an event, so I'm counting currently. So this is a bad example. But in most other cases, when I'm not training for a physical event, I only intuitively eat, right? Like I don't track my food. I don't count because I've been doing it for so long. Now I kind of know generally what I'm getting. And I base everything on how much energy do I have, right? If I'm feeling low energy, let's say sleep aside, let's say I got a good night of sleep, I didn't overtrain, like all that's checked off, and I've got low energy. Well, maybe I didn't eat enough carbohydrates yesterday or today, things like that. Or, man, like my recovery times are just down. Like, what's my protein been at? Like, I kind of just know what to eat based on what my goals are and how I'm feeling. Or let's say my weight's going up or down. Like my weight's going down, not eating enough. My weight's going up, I'm eating too much, right? It's like a litmus test and you kind of just play it by ear. But that's a lot easier for people, but it takes time to get to that point.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's one thing that I've, struggled with my whole life. But, once I started counting calories and understanding how to do that, it was so much easier. Like I was mentioning before, is like I gained a little bit of weight when I was, starting off my business. And that's kind of really when I started learning more about calorie counting, on my own. I had a coach before and they helped me out. But, when I started learning how to do it on my own, I was like, oh, this is pretty simple. You know what I mean? I mean, it doesn't require like, you don't have to be, it's not rocket science, right? But like, you're right. You start seeing these, your input on certain foods, right? And you're like, wow, I didn't realize this type of food had this amount of calories. I can't eat that much of it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it's pretty interesting to actually understand that and to start seeing that. And, so I did the calorie counting for a while and then I stopped for a while. I tried to do the intuitive eating, and from my, from creating that habit of like how much, kind of understanding how much my body should be eating and stuff, I did okay. You know what I mean? I was also kind of trying to gain a little weight. So I did gain a little bit of weight, but yeah, I didn't like blow up like I normally would have, normally sometimes I would gain like 30 pounds in like 3 months or less, you know what I mean? And it's really quick. Just because I just eat everything that I see. And mostly it's like eating that, like, Nutella, peanut butter and stuff like that. It's like the stuff that you don't think has that many calories, which can amount to a lot of calories really quickly if you don't pay attention to that, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So yeah, but now I'm back into calorie counting, so I'm cutting some weight. And yeah, I'm trying to keep my calories under 2,000. I try to give myself a range instead of giving myself like I'm gonna hit exactly 2,000 calories, or else I'm gonna starve myself tomorrow. You know what I mean? It's like it's not that big a deal, you know.
And there's always a margin of error, even in tracking, give or take, 100 calories. So
exactly.
No, you're doing it right, man.
Exactly. Yeah. So let me ask you this next question. So can you discuss a little bit the connection between hydration and workplace performance? And what are some tips for staying properly hydrated throughout the workday?
Sure. So hydration is a topic all on its own, right? You could talk at length about the importance of hydration, but if you are not properly hydrated, your brain is not going to be functioning as well as it could be. You'll probably feel lethargic. All around, it's not good to get dehydrated. So some easy tips at work. The number one tip is just having a water bottle always present, right? Like carry a water bottle around with you, drink as much as you possibly can. Exactly, right? I always have. I'm like the weird guy at work, and I work with dietitians, but I've got this water bottle. Then I bring a 64-ounce one in too, is like my supplementary water. I've got my coffee. I've got like 4 different containers in front of me. But again, plan ahead, right? I always make sure that I've got a fluid source on me at all times. That water bottle basically never leaves my side unless I'm in the middle of a workout. If you have a water bottle, but you have a hard time remembering to drink it, I've told clients in the past, set a reminder on your phone, use Post-it notes, any form of reminder that will help you remember to drink water, use that strategy. And then again, the employer having the availability of, filtered water at the office, whether it's those big water jugs, whether it's like, one of the water fountains built in with the water bottle filling station, make it easy for employees to have water. Maybe incentivize employees to drink water over drinking soda. Back to getting rid of the vending machines and putting in water stations, right? Things like that.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe have a water competition who drinks the most water, because I know a lot of people, they don't drink the amount of water they should be, and I've been guilty of that for sure too. That's one thing that when I first started dieting, like my first diet, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I gained like 80 pounds, or it was like about 50, 60 pounds, you know what I mean? But I gained a lot of weight, and then I was like, wow, I need to change, and once I started making the change, I realized that it was just my bad habits. So, like I was talking to you about that book earlier, The Compounding Effect. So I did something like that. And what I did was I started off with just drinking water for like a full month. I was just like, okay, I'm going to drink a gallon of water a day. And I just started slow, and I built from there. And then I started incorporating more like vegetables and stuff like that into my diet. You know what I mean? And I went from there until I actually hired somebody to help me with my actual diet, you know what I mean, and my fitness, and then that I dropped the weight real quick. Well, like 3 months, you know what I mean. I lost like 50 pounds. Well, actually, it was like 4 months. So it's actually it was between 4 to 6 months. I lost like around 50 pounds, but yeah, I got to like 203 pounds, I think, from 280. So.
That's huge. I can't overstress the importance of hydration.
So, yeah, let me get into this next question. So, can you tell us a little bit of like, how can a business leader and their employees manage stress and its impact on their dietary choices and overall health?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, stress in general is something that, everyone experiences in different capacities. So this topic, when it relates to nutrition specifically, is something I work with my law enforcement clients quite a bit, because, one thing that we have to look at is the fight or flight response, which is inherent in all of us, right? That is like an evolutionary trait that we have. But when it comes down to the hormones that are involved in that, cortisol specifically, there is a response with hunger cues. So you can imagine back in the day, let's just say like the Paleolithic era, right? You're a caveman, and all of a sudden a saber-toothed tiger just pops up out of nowhere, right? That fight or flight kicks in, and then you physically either fight the saber-toothed tiger or you run as fast as you can to get away. So your body knows after fight or flight, one of the two, whatever you did, you're going to need food afterwards because you just expended a lot of energy fighting or running away. So fast forward to 2023, okay, our bodies and our cortisol response to stress hasn't changed all that much. So now let's say you're sitting behind a desk, right? You work corporate and you get this email that is like a triggering email, right? It sets off this stress response. Like I'm sure anybody can relate to that. Like it's like a girlfriend saying like, hey, we got to talk, but like no more details. It's just like that. Your stomach drops out. It's like, oh. So that will also initiate the fight or flight response. And in doing so, the cortisol will lead to you feeling hungry. And of course, naturally drawn to calorie dense foods, right? Things high in sugar, things that are really greasy and fatty. Like that's what we want to eat because our body knows we're going to get a lot of bang for our buck out of that calorically dense food. So understanding that when you have a stress response, being hungry afterwards is completely normal. But in those situations, you have to be like, hey, I didn't fight and I didn't flight. So like, even though I'm hungry, like to satisfy that, I'll give myself maybe like a little snack, but keep it like super low key. Like, like maybe carrots and hummus, or you know what I'm saying? Something like not very calorically dense, but you can also satisfy your hunger cue, because ignoring the hunger cue could also be bad. But that's probably the best advice for dealing with stress, is just recognizing how your body reacts to it in terms of your hunger cues, because that is a supernatural reaction, especially since you might not just get one of those emails in a day. You might get 10 of those emails in a day. So you got to be prepared for when that comes, that you can deal with and manage those hunger cues appropriately.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's very, very interesting stuff right there. I didn't even know about that stuff, but kind of reminds me of like when you drink, you know what I mean? And you have that, you want that fatty food, or the fatty food the next day, or even when you're drinking, your body kind of wants that. It's kind of just reminded me of that, but that's very
interesting. The alcohol lowers your discipline, right? So your body's going to go to those super calorically dense foods. Like, yeah, I know I'm going to get some energy out of that sucker, that pizza or that burger,
Yeah, for sure. Definitely make bad decisions when you're drinking alcohol, for sure. I'm definitely glad that I've taken a long break from that.
Likewise, my friend, likewise.
To mention that too, there's actually no benefits for alcohol. Have you heard about I've been hearing a lot of new stuff about alcohol. You know how before they used to actually believe that, if you drank like a glass of wine or a beer a day, it was actually good for you. But now from what I've been hearing, that, the new studies are saying that no alcohol is actually good for you.
Yeah. So the train of thought, it was based on a lot of good data, but it wasn't ever the full story, right? So like the recommendation for men to have like up to 2 drinks a day, preferably red wine. A lot of that actually came back to the micronutrients you're talking about previously, right? Like the resveratrol and other things that the plant pigments in the grapes of wine, that deep red, it does have health benefits. Okay. But the alcohol itself, the ethanol, it's a macronutrient. There are 7 calories per gram of ethanol. So a lot of people think alcohol is all carbohydrates. It's not true. A lot of it's also, calories from the alcohol itself. Alcohol is also a priority nutrient, meaning that because your body wants to get rid of it and detoxify, it will prioritize metabolizing the alcohol before any other nutrient. So like, let's say you drink after a workout. Well, now instead of properly metabolizing the carbohydrates to replace your glycogen or the protein to start rebuilding some of the muscle tissue you damaged, well, now instead of that, it's going to prioritize the alcohol first. And your body's not going to, maximize and optimize the nutrition you ate following the workout just to get rid of the alcohol. So I was at a great presentation at Fancy, which is the big dietetics conference a couple of years ago. And I heard an hour-long lecture on the latest and greatest alcohol research. And that was a big eye-opener for me, because I was always under the impression that, yes, there are benefits to drinking small quantities of red wine, but the ultimate conclusion was no alcohol is better than even some red wine. Now, there's other things to be said, right? Alcohol plays a big role in certain people's cultures. There's a social aspect to it. So, I mean, you just got to weigh it, right? Like, cutting alcohol out is a big choice to make. And obviously it's probably better in the long run for health. But if it's going to completely interfere with your cultural life, your family life, and that's going to do mental harm, well, then you got to weigh that in too, right? Everything's about balance. So, but in terms of a health, like purely physiological perspective, no alcohol is best.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. And it was funny too, because I was seeing some like social, some people on social media, and they were talking to like individuals about that too, like what you're saying, right? And they were like, well, how do you feel about, alcohol actually having no benefits for you as it was originally thought? And people were like, well, that sucks. That like completely changes my whole, like you're saying, the culture, and, they like to go out drinking, socialize. Like that's basically what they revolve their fun around, in a sense. You know what I mean? So it's really interesting. And I think you're right about that. It's going to take a lot of education for people to understand that there's different things to do, together with people rather than just going out and drinking. But
for sure,
it is part of people's culture. I mean, you and I were in the Marine Corps. That's definitely part of our culture there. That's
huge part.
It's I think that's like kind of ingrained in us. It kind of becomes our go-to even afterwards. We're like, we're gonna go hang out with people, let's drink. Or we're gonna go, we have a problem, let's drink. All this type of stuff. We just kind of, it's just part of the culture, and we use it for different things. And I think that's kind of sad. The sad part about the military, right, is we kind of put too much emphasis in how important alcohol is, and instead of finding more healthy ways to cope, they kind of just don't tell us anything, and then you just go drink instead, to kind of,
for sure,
to kind of try to get rid of all those emotions that you don't even really understand that you're having.
Absolutely. I mean, you're young, you're under a lot of stress, it's encouraged. There's a whole bunch of factors that go into it. And at the end of the day, it's going to have to come down to like a cultural shift.
For sure. Yeah. And that's I don't know if I see that in the Marine Corps, especially the fact that it was born in a bar.
Born in a bar, baby. Ton Tavern, 1775. Let's go.
Yeah. I actually visited it a couple years ago.
Cookies Tavern.
Went to the spot. No, it's actually in a park right now. Like the original Ton Tavern, it's in a park. And I went to visit it, and it was pretty interesting. Took some pictures of the signs, where it used to stand, and it was mentioning how like it originated by some Scottish people that came here overseas, and they like built the military essentially over here, or at least the Marine Corps. You know what I mean? So it was pretty interesting to be a part of that history and kind of be where it all started.
Long live the brotherhood, baby.
Rah. So yeah, man. So let me get into this next question for you. So for individuals traveling for work, right? What are some strategies for maintaining proper nutrition and avoiding unhealthy food choices while on the road? I know we kind of discussed that. You were mentioning like, planning ahead and stuff like that. But maybe what are some actual, what are some brands or just like take us through like how to do that real quick in like a Target or something, or wherever you shop, whatever locations they might have some foods they can easily pick out, stuff like that.
For sure.
That's cool.
So some of the things I do personally, back to like the fiber talk and the protein talk, when you travel at least by air, there's a fluid restriction, right? So bringing things that contain liquid is going to be an issue. So a lot of the things I bring, I've already mentioned, right? So fruit. So I'll either bring whole fruit and stuff that's not going to get like smushed in a bag. Like bananas are a bad thing to travel with because just inevitably they're going to turn brown and get smushed and you're going to forget about them. and it's a nightmare. So things like apples, like hard fruits, even those small tangerines, like the cuties, those are good to travel with as long as they're not going to get, again, smushed. Dried fruit is a great option. Now, because the water is taken out, they're higher in sugar, so it's going to get metabolized a little quicker. But I really like dates. I bring dates along. I'll bring figs along, like whole figs or mini figs. Lots of nuts and seeds. So I'll pack like almonds, walnuts, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, things like that. I'll bring dark chocolate to snack on. Protein bars are always a go-to. So I've got a guaranteed protein source along with me. And that's just for travel. Once you get to your destination, I think a lot of working professionals that travel, a problem they run into is they go out to eat a lot, right? Whether their company pays for them to like wine and dine, their business associates, or just gives them a per diem to use. They go out and they kind of splurge at dinner. And like, there's times and places to go out and like eat a quote unquote unhealthy meal. And that's totally fine, right? Like going back to the culture thing we just talked about, like it's important to not only treat yourself mentally to a good quality meal that like, it might be a greasy burger or, French fries or whatever it may be. But if that's going to be the case and ahead of time, like, hey, we're going out with clients tonight and we're going to eat at this steakhouse or this, burger joint, well, then you got to front load the first part of your day with healthy foods, right? Like, okay, I'm going to be in my hotel room before I hit the office. I'll bring some oatmeal packets. I'll bring, a bowl, I'll tactfully acquire a bowl while I'm there. I'll do some oatmeal in the morning with some peanut butter packets. Mix that up, hit a protein bar. Maybe I'll bring some protein powder in individual packets. So I'll have like a complete balanced meal. Super easy to like stop by a local convenience store and try to get some sort of fruit, whether it's like most convenience stores have like apples, oranges, bananas. Just get one of those to pair with your oatmeal in the morning. And then for lunch, that's always tricky too. It depends what your work situation's like. Maybe you guys order out. Maybe you got a chance to hit up a local grocery store and grab something to make a quick meal. But again, knowing what to get at the grocery store comes back to the knowledge point. But every situation's different. Just packing the right snacks, like I talked about, using the ones that I personally travel with, and then having a plan for what your day-to-day is going to look like, whether it's you're going to be in the office the whole time and then go back to the hotel, or you're going out to eat that night with coworkers. Just plan ahead. So if you're going to eat an unhealthy meal at night, make sure you front load the day, lunch and breakfast, with something a little bit more helpful that's going to, actually help you reach your goals.
Gotcha. And what would you say is like more important? So would it be like hitting the amount of calories? So let's say like, they are planning that they might have like a fattier meal later down the road or later in the day. Should they like maybe not eat during the beginning of the day, so then that way they can make room for the extra calories that they will have in the evening time? Does that make sense? Or like,
yeah. So I mean, again, the situation is going to dictate, but let's use the example you mentioned where it's going to be like a really fatty meal. Let's say it's like a big pizza or like a super fatty, like ribeye steak, right? Or prime rib with the fat around the edges. So in that sense, I know I'm going to have a high volume of saturated fat in the evening time. So I'll just make sure whatever I'm eating in the meals prior to that will be lower in saturated fat. So things like whole fat dairy, meat products that are high in saturated fat, I'll try to limit those, and I'll get protein from like lean meats. I'll get protein from like low fat dairy, things of that nature, just to make sure I'm like cutting out the saturated fat. And in terms of calories in general, if you're going to go overboard and eat like 1,500 calories at dinner, right? I'll just eat lighter in the beginning portions of the day. Now, again, this is being really specific, right? This is like the guy that's on top of it, doesn't want to miss a goal. A meal, going overboard on saturated fat or overboard on calories, right? Like one night on a business trip for a week, like no big deal. It all comes down to consistency over time. Now, if you're going to go on a business trip for a week and do that every single night, then yeah, it might behoove you to front load the day, like I mentioned, really pay attention to it. But if it's just going to be one or two evenings, it's not going to make or break your gains. It's really not. Like nutrition isn't, unless you're in a sport like professional level Tour de France cycling, right? Where like one off day might mean the difference between you crossing the finish line that split second between your competitor, right? In most other cases, for just general health and well-being, you don't need to overthink it. Like, it's okay to treat yourself. It's okay to, not be perfect every single day. Like, that cannot be, lost my train of thought, like, overemphasized, right? It's a very important point to allow yourself some flexibility and freedom and not be too rigid, because most people aren't elite level cyclists, right? Like, it doesn't matter all that much. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's very clear, and it makes a lot of sense for sure. Yeah. And you're right. Like, I think a lot of people, once they start dieting too, they kind of, harp on like, oh, I need to be perfect. But I think that's part of like, beginning the journey of living a healthier lifestyle, is like, you got to realize that there's going to be those days where, you're just going to kind of either enjoy life or have like a cheat meal, a cheat day, whatever, or
Absolutely.
whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? I know dietitians don't like calling foods cheat meals, because there's no such thing as a cheat food.
We call them treat meals. You treat yourself.
Meals. Yeah, exactly. Treat meal. That's a better option for sure. You know what I mean? It's you got to enjoy life at the end of the day,
Yeah, and I'm a data-oriented guy. So the way I always explain it to my clients is like, think of your life from beginning to end, especially like starting your health journey to like the day you die, as a graph, right? Like, as long as you've got more good days of being healthy and like staying on the right track, like a couple bad days isn't going to affect the slope of the graph. Like, you're still going to have a positive correlation heading in the right direction towards your health goals, right? And if you have more negative days of eating like crap, not paying attention, not exercising, you'll have a negative sloping graph, right? And the goal is to have a positive sloping graph, but you don't need every point to be perfect, right? It's like a scatter plot. As long as the majority of the points are above it and less points are below it, you'll still have that positive relationship.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense for sure. So, how can we effectively address and combat the growing issue of obesity in the workplace, and what role can nutrition and education and intervention play in that effort?
I mean, that's a great question, right? And that's like the issue of our time right now, is obesity and type 2 diabetes and things like that. And it's so multifactorial, meaning there's so many inputs that play a role, nutrition being a huge one. I think at the end of the day is we eat too much and are less active, right? Like, those are like diet and exercise, right? Like, it's not sexy. It's basic. Like, people want these complex, like Huberman style answers where you got a cold plunge at 5 a.m. and then you better hit a 30-minute sauna session. And then your cardio should be, this, but don't forget about your mobility training, and make sure you eat 7 blueberries with 1/4 slice of dark chocolate and this and that. Like, no, like, at the end of the day, for most people, if you move more, eat less, and eat higher quality whole foods, right, and less processed, remember, back to what we talked about earlier. If you're eating a food that a machine did the work to process, it means your body is doing less work. So you're burning less calories and you're going to absorb the nutrients faster. And if you're sitting behind a desk working, you don't need your body to absorb nutrients faster, because it's going to go nowhere. Now, if you're about to go on an 8-mile run, right, drinking apple juice like 30 minutes before the run might be great, because it's going to enter your bloodstream faster. That's like a strategic use of like a processed food. Mm-hmm. But for most people, to sitting behind the desk, eating, like, just sticking to whole foods and eating a well-balanced diet that's super diverse, okay? We're talking various fruits, various vegetables, various grains, various nuts and seeds, various protein sources, that big wide variety in reasonable portion sizes, plus in the incorporation of more movement throughout the day. That would be a huge step in the right direction. I tell clients that, don't have time, let's say they've got 3 kids, busy office life. Clients like that, little things go a long way. Taking the stairs instead of the escalator. When you go grocery shopping, park at the end of the parking lot and walk all the way to the grocery store and then all the way back. When you're in the grocery store, if you can manage it, use a basket instead of a cart, right? And they're like, oh, that's like nothing, right? Like a couple extra steps here. Like, what difference does it really make? Again, think of it beginning to end in a lifetime. That all adds up. Those are all steps literally in the right direction. I call it finding an excuse to win. And I borrowed that from the Navy SEALs, of course. But find an excuse to win, right? Like, find an excuse to get active. So again, don't fight for that front row parking spot. Just go park in the back where there's plenty, ample parking, and just take the extra steps in. Any excuse you can get more movement in throughout the day is going to help benefit you in the long run.
Yeah, that's definitely great. And I try to incorporate that too. And I tell people to incorporate that in their lives too. You know, the ones that are willing to do it are going to do it at the end of the day, and the ones that aren't are not. But those are like easy steps to be able to take to just kind of like make those little changes for your own
right.
health. You know what I mean? Especially like,
and I think people have this mindset where they don't believe it. They're like, it can't be that simple. It's got to be something crazy, like I talked about with like the cold plunges and this and that. And that stuff's all great. But again, for like the majority of people, the little stuff that's not sexy, like taking more steps at the grocery store and carrying a basket instead of pushing a cart, like that's what's going to help you in the long run. Or like, instead of coming home after work and immediately just like sitting on the couch or do what you need to do, how about you get in the kitchen and prep your food for the next day? Like take the extra 30 minutes to get ahead for the next day and then build that habit. So as you take that 30 minutes to not sit on the couch and prep your food, not only are you setting yourself up for success nutritionally the next day, but as you're going to the fridge, packing your stuff, cooking a little bit, you're moving. It's like an extra 30 minutes of consistent movement. So it's a win-win. Doing that day in and day out, that's what keeps your body on track.
Yeah, I think it brings us back to that like kind of the overall topic of this is always planning ahead. You know what I mean? Making sure that you're planned, you know, pre-planning and prepared for whatever situation you're going to find yourself in, whether it's the next day or, you know, just if you're on if you have like a diet plan, just planning the diet, making sure that you're, you know, ahead of your everything that you're going to be doing. So I really appreciate that. Yeah. So, is there anything else that you like want to mention? You know, your last thing that you want to mention to, you know, relating to diet, nutrition, and stuff like that, that you think that would really benefit, you know, everyone here?
Absolutely. I've got a couple things. One, start yesterday, right? Don't wait. Just get started. Two, don't overcomplicate it. There are so much going around on social media with various diets, this and that. But as I talked about several times throughout our conversation here, it doesn't need to be overwhelmingly elaborate, right? It's the basics: eating whole foods, balanced meals, smaller portions, moving more, all that simple stuff. Okay. So don't overcomplicate it. Start yesterday. Don't overcomplicate it. And three is make sure you're getting your dietary advice from subject matter experts. And in the case of nutrition, it is registered dietitians. Whether it's myself, a colleague, a dietitian elsewhere, at least you know that that individual is going to have a standardized level of education that reinforces the importance of adequate evidence-based nutrition, right? So how to read a study, how to take in advice or information and say, okay, was that a good study? Was that a bad study? So that they're giving you recommendations based on evidence and not just hearsay or not just a testimonial. You could see some guy on Instagram that's like, oh, I juiced for a week and I lost all this weight. I'm a nutrition expert. Everyone should juice, right? That's like one study subject in a personal trial that had no scientific background. It's pure testimony. So everything a dietitian is going to be giving you is going to be based on quality research, right? Or at least they should be. Just like any career, there's going to be bad apples, right? Not everyone is going to be on top of their A game. But for the most part, you can feel safe in knowing that, again, they have a basic standardized level of education and you're going to be getting that quality advice. The reason dietitians, I feel like, don't get as much attention on social media is because they're not putting out clickbait, right? They're not putting out these crazy diet interventions that just like get mass attention because a lot of the stuff isn't sexy. Yeah. It's eating whole foods, getting more colors, eat your fruits and vegetables, right? The basics that most of us know intuitively, but that's like eating fruits and vegetables isn't sexy, right? Like when's the last time you saw a commercial on TV for fruits and vegetables? Right?
I remember, yeah.
But you'll see keto this, Atkins diet that, right?
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. If somebody's claiming, I saw this the other day from a doctor who's a nutrition doctor. If you see somebody online that's claiming to know something that the entire body of nutrition and medicine doesn't know already, it's a fucking scam. Okay.
Yeah.
No one has this secret answer out of nowhere, right? Because that means it's not backed by any science, because it was backed by volumes of science, meaning tons of study subjects, validated, peer-reviewed, gone through the whole process. More than one person's going to know about it. Trust me.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. That's definitely great advice right there. I think more people need to understand. Like, for some reason, I don't understand. And I think, not to get into religious stuff, but I think religion kind of limits people's minds for the scientific research, studies and stuff. They're like, oh, well, my God didn't teach me that or whatever. It doesn't say it in the book. So I see a lot of religious people are kind of like, they're standoffish to scientific research, scientific facts and stuff like that. I don't understand why, but that's the community that I see that in mostly. But yeah, I think science, it's great and it does a lot of good for society,
For sure. Well, like the point of science is to always question, right? So like certain things over time in nutrition have changed, right? Like eggs used to be deemed bad. More recent data has come out and now, right? And so people always go like, I don't know what to do. Like eggs were bad, now they're good. I don't know what to eat. And it's like, that's true, right? And I feel bad for the consumer in that regard. But like, as new science comes out, new recommendations come out, and it's ever changing for the better, right? Because we're always questioning. Like, we know with, like, let's say a high degree of confidence that eating high levels of saturated fat over time increases your risk for heart disease, right? That's based on volumes of data. Well, like, that's constantly being tested, right? We're like, yeah, but is that true? Like, can we find a study that proves otherwise? Like, we're always trying in the field of nutrition to disprove what we already believe. It's called a null hypothesis. We always start with the assumption that what we know is false, and we try different ways to prove that it's false. And time again, if we can't prove that it's false, that means it's true. So that's the recommendations we give, because it's like, yeah, we tried really hard to disprove this, but we can't right now. And that's where, like, people that get on these like carnivore diets and keto diets, they're like, all this other science is bad because my guru said so, and my stuff's right. And it's like, so he's saying all this other stuff's wrong, but he's not questioning his own beliefs, right? Like, it just blows my mind, because people are just willing to accept that other science is bad, but their science is good, right? It's like, all science should be questioned. That's the scientific method. That's what we do day in and day out. We constantly question and test until we get, again, high degrees of confidence in what we recommend to the general public.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the end of the day, those are like, that's part of marketing, is picking and choosing which studies you're going to mention.
Oh, of course. Cherry picking.
Public, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Absolutely. It's huge. And that's why I recommend, if people are going to follow somebody to get nutrition advice, especially on social media, at least make sure it's a registered dietitian, because odds are they're not going to be posting that bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You got to like look into people and see exactly like what their background is. I don't want to name any names, but there's a few, carnivore people out there, and, they call themselves doctors, but they're not dietitians, or even regular doctors. They're like, psychiatrists. So,
absolutely. Anybody that has further questions on that, I highly recommend them looking up PhD Lane Norton, and specifically him refuting, or at least like counterpointing, the podcast where the carnivore MD was on Joe Rogan. And he's got a great piece. You can find it online. He basically writes full in-depth descriptions of every counterpoint he has to his logic. But the whole carnivore diet and keto diet thing, that is a conversation for another day. I mean, a lot of people are in those camps. They're going to stay in those camps. It probably won't take me to, it's going to take more than me to change their minds. And that's okay. Like, I'm very confident in the advice that I give, and the advice that I give to my clients is being, evidence-based as well as safe, right? Because at the end of the day, my whole goal is to keep people healthy. So I'm not going to do anything that I deem as unethical or high risk, unless it was an extremely like emergency-based situation where, like, you've got to try something new because nothing else worked. For the most part, I feel confident knowing that all the advice I give is fully rooted in scientific backing.
Evidence-based. I love that. Yeah, that's definitely something that people should be focused on when they're looking into stuff like this, is evidence-based. It needs to be evidence-based.
For sure. And again, if you don't know, if you don't feel confident doing the research on your own and determining if a study was good or bad, leave it to the subject matter experts. Like, I get my fitness advice from exercise physiologists and physical therapists, right? Like people that know the body inside and out and do this every day. I don't get my advice anymore from locker room bro science that, basically was all of my 20s. Like now I know, like, oh, I'm just going to trust the expert in the field.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Because I actually have a little story about that. Is like when I first started cutting, one of my first diets that I did, I was working with the coach, and he told me, he's like, I started getting injured the first time around, like a couple years, 3 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. But, he was like, yeah, man. And this guy was in the Navy too. He was like, yeah, suck it up, man. And I was like, you're my fucking coach. Like, I want you to tell me like how to heal this. It's like, obviously if I continue, like it's going to get worse. So, I had to fire that person. You know what I mean? I was just like, I'm done working with you. You're telling me to continue injuring myself. That's the best advice you can give me, is to suck it up. It's like, I know how to suck it up. I was a Marine, not in the Navy. You know what I mean? And you're not a fucking Navy SEAL. So I'm not even, bashing Navy SEALs, but you're in the fucking Navy, the regular Navy. So I was like, I'm not going to take advice from your dumbass. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a time and a place to suck it up, right? Like you're in a firefight and it's life or death. Like, yeah, you're going to suck it up and make do, but it's like, I'm training to be a better athlete and have longevity, in the sport. So I'm going to back off, rest, heal, and not get injured, right? Because I don't want to be broken by the time I'm 40.
Exactly. And that's what happens when you take advice from people that don't really know what they're talking about, and just have a terrible, terrible mindset, And recently, when I started my journey again, I started getting these same injuries again because, hey, guess what? If you don't take care of them, they're still there. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And I did my own research this time, and tried a few different things out. But like you said, I got my information from actual physical therapists, you know what I mean? And they're the ones that, when you start seeing people say the same thing, I did research on YouTube, and I talked to, a family member that's a physical therapist, but, they're usually like, when you talk to them in person, they're like, rest, So I was like, I think that I can continue. I'm not like dead. You know what I mean? I was like, it's still functioning. So I was like, I did more research with other physical therapists, and basically what they were saying is you had to do certain exercises to strengthen other areas of your body. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Work on the tightness in the areas and certain nutrition deficiencies. But yeah, that helped way more than just sucking it up. You know what I mean? Yeah, I did rest a little bit. I eased off, put my foot on the brakes a little bit, so then that way I wasn't getting worse. Because then initially I was getting worse, but then I was like, okay, take a little break, you know what I mean? See how I can repair this. And now I've been doing this for like, about a month now, and I feel much better. It's just night and day once you have the information, that proper information of how you can actually change your life. And a lot of people have these, it's crazy because a lot of people have these injuries and they think they're for life. They're like, oh, I have a bad knee. They keep it for years, and then they're like, now I need surgery. It's like,
right.
All you could have done is just like, you could have had a massage. You could have stretched a little bit more. You could have exercised the other weaker areas around that area, and it's just, it blows my mind that this information isn't like easily available, when all you need to do is like ask or do some research, and you can figure it out on your own. You know what I mean? But it's a lot easier when you find, get the help from a professional, as you're saying, from the subject matter expert, because they can actually guide you in the process, coach you in the process, and make sure you're going the right route. You know what I mean? Instead of having to guess in the beginning.
Yeah. You just can't be lazy. You gotta do the due diligence and put the time in and find the right people to listen to. And, that's going to take more time than seeing the first clickbait Instagram story that comes across your feed that's like, oh, yep, my back hurts, I'm going to follow this. Like, don't question it. Like, that's it. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So, hey, where, if somebody's interested in, learning more about your services and how you can help them with their diet, can you tell us like where we can find you? And you were mentioning that you're going to have a website too, and I'd love to post that in the description once it's ready to go too. So yeah, tell us how we can find you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm doing kind of a rebrand and updating a couple things. So my website is still up and running. You can find me at gruntgrubrd.com. So Grunt Grub's the company. RD stands for registered dietitian. So gruntgrubrd.com. And to stay up to date, I'm most active on Instagram. So I often post other dietitians to other nutrition professionals in my stories. I try to promote, that as much as possible so that people can follow other people other than just me. So you've got a wide variety, a diverse group of professionals in the field. So you can follow me on Grunt Grub or at Grunt Grub on Instagram, or find me right at my website, gruntgrubrd.com. So, and more big things to come, which I'm excited about. So
awesome.
Thanks for having me on, brother.
Yeah. Are you on LinkedIn, by the way, or no?
I am on LinkedIn. Yes. I'd have to see what my Grunt Grub status is on, because I don't use that as frequently for my business.
Gotcha. I'll link it below. You can give that to me afterwards and I'll link it below. But yeah, man, it was great having this conversation with you and catching up. And, I love what you're doing right now. Being able to help people with their diet, super important. So, I wish you all the best in your getting your master's in the future. And you were mentioning that you have a race coming up. So I know you're going to kill it like you always have. So thanks, yeah, brother. Thanks for coming on, and I appreciate you.
Yeah, likewise, brother. Much love, and we'll see you next time.
And that brings us to the end of the Success Solutions podcast. Thank you for joining us today as we delved deep into the world of nutrition with our guest, Erik Grohmann, and uncovered valuable insights to help you make informed choices on your nutrition and well-being. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay connected with us, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Also, don't forget to like this video and share it with others who might benefit from this valuable information. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes, please leave them in the comments. We love hearing from our community, and your feedback helps us shape the content we bring to you. See you in the next episode.